I can smell a revolution in the air. Revolution moments have beckoned in the past, but they have been aborted by a number of factors and forces. Sometimes reason has prevailed, and when Kenya spilled into the streets in what would have marked the beginning of serious revolution, God came through for us, and the leadership of this country sat down with the opposition into a united country. But for how long shall we hope that God will cover us for the wrongdoings we engage in deliberately? I would support Yoweri Museveni when he says, God may be tired with stupid people. So yes, a revolution is beckoning. A warning to my countrymen, country people. If you look at history, revolutions have brought benefits to many countries. But it's equally true that revolutions have been destructive. Many times, it takes long periods of time to rebuild a country that has been destroyed in a week or two. Sometimes, it costs the people of a country or a kingdom dearly to make just some little incremental change. In other words, after every war, people sit down and wonder, did we have to go to war? Likewise, after every revolution, when you come to a point in the history of a country when you can say the revolution, especially the expression of the same, is surely behind us, and you look at the gains and you are honest with yourself, you will only ask yourself one question. Did we have to go through all this to achieve this much? Why am I talking revolution? Everywhere around you, if you open your eyes, you can see we are courting disaster and anarchy. We are inviting a revolution. Our leaders continue to talk down to the people as if the people are their children. In fact, not their children. They are subhuman. The arrogance, the hubris with which our leaders approach the people of this country reminds me of what the Greeks have told us in the Greek mythology, that he who the gods want to destroy, they first make mad. Charlie Pride long sang that pride comes before a fall. That's where we are. If you listen to our leaders, you see the way they chest thump, the way they approach things, the arrogance, they don't care. That would remind you of High Commissioner Edward Clay, who told our leaders about vomiting on the shoes of those who had put them where they were and supported them. That's where we are today. The new boys around with the new money, with the new riches, showing off, with all the extravagance you can think of, carrying bundles and bundles of currency, of legal tender, of money, in the weekends, splashing millions upon millions. All this is building towards a revolution. While all this arrogance is going on, and extravagance and showmanship, with watches costing in the region of millions of shillings, T-shirts, not like my Mutumba T-shirt here, costing thousands, tens of thousands for a T-shirt. Shoes costing hundreds of thousands of shillings, not to mention of designer suits. In a country where people are dying from diarrhea, in a country where people are still dying from diseases that other countries sorted out 200-300 years ago. That is a country in which people are moving with bundles of notes, and there are millions, moving from one Harambee to the other in helicopters. You are inviting a revolution. Look at the finance bill and tell me if we are not courting disaster. The people are being pushed further and further into poverty through extreme taxation. And the leadership of this country, the members of parliament, don't seem to mind it. In fact, they support it. In fact, as I do this video, unless something special happens, I'm sure they will pass that finance bill into law. A law that will usher in taxation and other measures that will bring more power to the people. And tell me how that is not courting a revolution. There's an end, there's a limit beyond which people never go. And they have never gone beyond that limit in history. Information is not the way we got it in books, where we had to read Peacock and I don't know who else about European history. Hill or Hull, there's somebody like that. Today on the internet, you can go through the French Revolution. Within 30 minutes, you will have an idea of how it started, how it got where it got, and other revolutions in the world. Today, we live in a country where education has been destroyed straight to its limit, where Kenyan children learn now in conditions worse off than the conditions they were in the 1960s. When I went to school, we were given free books. The school equipment scheme provided even balls, handball, football, exercise books. Today, to take a child to school is a nightmare. For the first time, and I've said this before, Kenyan children admitted in public universities are not taking up their positions in numbers that should worry everybody. Today, many students are dropping out of university. Tell me why that's not courting a revolution. When you have people who are bitter with society, that they went to university and after a year or two they couldn't finish, and they are roaming the streets. And tell me how will you enjoy what you have when you have thousands of people who go to university and dropped out because they could not afford the fees. Look at the healthcare. How many people are dying from cancer today? Do we have a government and a leadership that cares? Do we even know what people eat in this country? Do we even care how much poison we imbibe by way of imported foods? Do we know how many drugs are coming into this country that are actually just poison? Do we not know how much of artificial ripening of fruits is going on in this country? Do we care about the air people breathe in this country? Do we care about the pollution in our rivers? Do we care about the pollutants that flow in River Athi to be drunk by Kenyans downstream? Do you know the damage the flower farms and the pesticide they are using is getting into Kenyan bodies? We are courting a disaster. We are courting a disaster. While this is going on, politicians are fighting over bread. Yet each one of them has so many loaves they are rotting in the store, in the kitchen. Look at the fights between members of Kenya Kwanza, UDA, pitting Gachagua and others. You are engaged in these fights when Kenyans are dying of hunger, when the cost of living is destroying this country. I fear because I can see people behind the tent, and I must say I'm really afraid. Should we get to a point before 2027 or thereabouts, when Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, William Ruto, Mudavadi, and others join together in what will be an attempt to defeat democracy and the will of the people, to hoard power, to shortchange the people of this country? I fear for this country. I fear for this country, a country in which I have children and grandchildren. Grandchildren whose future we are completely destroying. Across all sectors, we have no future for our grandchildren. Not in education, which we are destroying in every imaginable way, including CBC. No future in the health sector, in which we are clinging to a concept that cannot work. A country that can provide free, quality health care is trying to model itself along what happens in rich countries, where the big pharma, the big pharmaceutical companies and health providers lead the country into a situation where people must pay for health. Unfortunately for us, this country does not have people who can pay for education, people who can pay for health. And therefore that idea, that thinking that we're importing blindly from other countries cannot work. The result is that as people continue to die from treatable diseases, as cancer continues to ravage the country, almost unabated, as our children continue attending schools in horrid conditions, and university students drop out and a number can't take their positions, we can only be foolish people to imagine that we have a future for those grandchildren and for those children. History has taught us that when people reach a certain point, it bursts. I appeal to the leadership of this country, to members of parliament in particular. If any member of parliament is listening to me today, if you know of a member of parliament, tell them it's not about them. It's not about Manyora, it's not about William Ruto, it's not about any of us. The decision you make in the National Assembly, beginning with this finance bill, is about your granddaughter. It's not about you. Think of a country in which you want to leave your granddaughter. That decision is about your grandson, not about you. Let us not reach to a point when instead of your granddaughter enjoying in a beautiful country called Kenya, they will be living in squalor, under conditions which only animals should live in. just because of that decision you make in the National Assembly. The decision as a member of parliament you make carries so much weight that 100 years from today, that decision and the effect of the same will still be seen. When you are a refugee in another country, because you push the country to the dogs, when you have left the comfort of your house and your palatial home, and you are watching from Mozambique where you are a refugee, then you remember the words of Manyora, that one decision you make in parliament will decide the future of this country. In fact, whether or not we shall have a country depends on that one decision you make. Even as you laugh, perhaps with a brown envelope, God has given you a rare opportunity that out of 50 million Kenyans, you are just among the less than 500 people who will make a decision on whether or not Kenya will be a country tomorrow. A decision on whether or not your grandson will find a country to call home. So don't be reckless with that decision. It is an important decision. I urge you as a member of parliament to stop for a moment and count the number of people who are like you, who have the future of this country in their hands. I want to tell you, if you are never counted, you are among less than 1,000 people in the whole country of 50+ million people who make the decision of whether or not we shall have a country tomorrow.